Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and I'm also a game dev working on my MMO project for girls called Mystic Riders. I got into MMOs back in the mid-2000s while I was still in college. I didn't have a great deal of money, so my roommate, who had all three of the big ones at the time, let me trial run each MMO. And for a lot of reasons, costs, the graphics, I ended up going with the original Guild Wars. Guild Wars set the standard for me with MMOs. I didn't end up getting another MMO until almost 10 years later, and that was Star Stable Online. At the time, SSO and Guild Wars actually had a similar graphical environment style, though their playable character styles were completely different. That's completely changed as SSO has gone to in a World of Warcraft direction. And some of the reasons I got into SSO were the same reasons I got into Guild Wars. I'm not saying Guild Wars is perfect in any way. There are some things that definitely could have been improved. It was 2005, and some of the quality of life improvements came to games later. Guild Wars, though, really does hold up play-wise because, unlike World of Warcraft and some other games that changed their playstyle as they added more expansions, Guild Wars added map and story, and in general kept their playstyle the same. There aren't really any parasitic systems here that become redundant once there's a new expansion. This was the time of the box price game. You bought the game and you didn't have to pay more. You could buy expansions and the DLC if you wanted. Paid once, the game was yours, and there was no subscription fee to maintain servers like World of Warcraft had. For poor college-age me, this was a real incentive. If I'd liked World of Warcraft, then I would have done it. There is also the lack of microtransactions in this game. There is an in-game currency you can use to buy things. There's no premium currency to try and force or trick you into spending more real-world money on this game. Guild Wars came out before microtransactions and premium currency were a huge deal in the gaming space. And now, according to NCSoft, it takes so little power to run the servers for the game. As long as Guild Wars 2 is running, Guild Wars will stay up. There's no reason for them to add microtransactions into it at this late date. Sure, there are some costumes you can buy for your account, but those are extremely optional. So if there is a resurgence of people buying and playing this game on Steam or from the Guild Wars site, then this game will still make them something of a profit. The payment plan for Guild Wars is old school at its best. They set a price for the game, and they didn't try to wring you dry. There's also no daily log-on requirements. Like, there's no horse to feed, no rewards every day if you log on. They trust if you like the game, you're going to like the game and continue to come back without needing gambling mechanics or daily login bonuses or forcing you to pay to take care of an animal. It's refreshing. Casual. Doesn't cause anxiety if you miss a day or two. It's fun. Games are supposed to be fun and not work. On the pure visual aesthetics level, Guild Wars appealed to me the most at the time. It was semi-realistic, they had really pretty armor, there was the capability to apply dye to your armor and change the colors, the Mesmer class had a distinctive Renaissance look to it that made it stand apart from EverQuest and World of Warcraft. The Necromancer armor was really cool, the Elementalists were pretty, the armor was well designed, and if you knew what the classes were, you can tell them apart at a glance. An instanced world. I know there are probably people who don't like this system. I understand. And I think the instance world system might be a part of the reason why Guild Wars takes up so little server space versus the big open world system maps we have today. I like open worlds too. They're great. They just take a lot of resources to run and putting everyone in on the same map. Whereas in Guild Wars, when you left the cities and the safe spaces, you were alone except for your party members. There was no one else to interfere with your quests or try to kill you outside the NPCs, both friendly and enemies. Now, I have seen players love both ways. Some players love an open world without load screens that they can interact with other players and the world feels like it's populated. Then you have players who really just want everyone else to go away. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground. I'm not hugely a fan of load screens anymore, but with Guild Wars, once you have the files, you've had the files, and the load screens really don't mean much. And the zones in Guild Wars are so huge, you don't feel cramped in between those load screens. Unlike Star Stable, where the zone frontingly is insanely huge for the tiny amount of map they've given us. I'm going to say the map they've given us might be the size of 2 zones in pre-searing Ascalon if you run it on foot in Star Stable, but because Star Stable is a mount game, the zones feel infinitely smaller and the map needs to be 4 times the size that it is. The size of the map in Guild Wars is moderately insane, and I'm not saying that all 3 maps put together, I'm just saying the map in the original game is insane, and the other 2 or 3 maps just added onto it. You can spend anywhere from 3 to 5 hours in the first pre-searing area alone. If you want to work your way up to level 10 and get the daily quests, there is that option too. But it can take upwards of 20 minutes or more to go from Lakeside County to the western edge of the map at Barradin's Estate. And I'm going to say between 15 and 20 minutes to Fort Rankin on the eastern side of the map, depending on what route you choose. It could be half an hour or so if you take the long way, which, because of the Blur of War, it can be really easy to take the long way if you're using the map to navigate. Oops. Oh well. Adventure! And in Guild Wars, you're on foot. There are no mounts, so you're running from one area to the next. And each post-searing zone area is just as big as pre-searing Ascalon zone areas. And if you are carrying something, the game physics slows you down, which, while annoying, is also really cool. And there are no bugs to get rid of it. I love this expansive map, pre- and post-searing. I really feel like I'm on an adventure in this new world, and there are a lot of nooks and crannies to explore. Lots of different levels and terrain types, and if you get 100% map exploration, you get this little achievement, and I don't remember, you get something for it. I think it's a title or something. The map system overall isn't perfect. There could be masses of improvement, but again, it's 2005. There's the big map, and then you have the map HUD as well. And what is really helpful on top of having the map HUD on the top left is you can hit U and make a mission map show up, which keeps track of where you've been overall. Thus, if you die, which does happen, you can retrace your steps. Even though the map is huge, one of the best things about Guild Wars is once you've discovered a safe place, like a town or a city that's set off from the instance area of the map and where people gather, you can always go to the main map and travel to that town or city or fairground automatically for free. Yes, free! Oh, thank God. As you run around in Guild Wars, there is a lack of visual clutter to take you out of the immersion of the game and get in your way. By lack of visual clutter, I mean 2 different things. There's a lack of interface clutter. I've seen games that really go overboard with the interactive type interfaces with NPCs and so on. Like they'll have icons and glows over everything, and everywhere where you can interact with someone or something, from opening doors to go in and out to talking in shops. Guild Wars takes 99% of that out. The only visual clutter is the green exclamation points and crossed swords to tell you about a quest or a mission. If you want to know where the merchant is, you need to find a merchant-looking NPC. Usually a guy with a backpack and the medieval version of a Rolex dealer in a trench coat in a back alley. And you can do this easily by holding down the Alt key. The Alt key will bring up any NPCs or collectibles in the area. Holding down the Control key will tell you where all the enemies are around you. Now, should there have been some more clutter? Sometimes. Like, the levers aren't really 100% obvious. Sometimes it's easy to miss things if you don't Alt every once in a while or don't know they're supposed to be there. Then a few particle effects wouldn't be amiss, but most of the time, the lack of names and other visual clutters makes the immersion better and makes it much, much nicer if you're streaming or taking pictures. There is upwards of 20 to 30 hours of main story content in the first Guild Wars alone, and the story is fairly well written. There's voice acting. The NPCs are really good characters. They spent time on the narrative, and it shows. I like that. Each expansion added more, and Eye of the North added yet more content for elite players and tied in an item you could only get in the tutorial area of the first game. I don't know if that was planned, but as an author, I appreciate it. However, I'm not even sure some claim hundreds of hours of secondary optional content. If you wanted to speedrun this game and just do the main quest, that's fine, but you'll miss out on a lot of quests to gain skills and experience points. And there are a lot of skills to learn and buy across all the expansions to customize your character. I'm not talking appearance or armor, I'm talking the actual mechanics of your fighting abilities. And what's actually really cool is there are some quests that are moderately hidden, like you have to listen to a conversation, and occasionally there are 2 or 3 different ways to end a quest and get the rewards. The gift for Lady Althea is one of these. Gwen is another. Lady Althea's optional quest ending really set the tone for her entire character. I appreciated it. They set up these in the tutorial, so hopefully you'll look forward to them. The tutorial area is very explicit on, okay, I've given you the skill, use the skill or die. Like, do read the text or else suffer the consequences. This game has hundreds and thousands of character builds that aren't actually better than each other. It really depends on what character build you want to play, or if you're a Mesmer, the area of the map you're in. It's very important if you're a Mesmer, for instance, to do recon, to know if you're going into an area with high magic users or high physical users. It will change how you build your character. Of course, my favorite looking class is also the hardest to play because that's how I roll. If you're a warrior or a monk, how you build your party is going to depend on the type of build you're trying to do. Are you trying to be more of a support function with shouts and stances, or are you trying to be a tank? Despite the repetitive gameplay loop, there is a strategy element to it. And for the most part, there is a lack of forced social interaction. When I first played this game, I'll admit I was silly. I bought into the MMO hype of if you weren't playing with real people friends, you weren't playing the game right. Guild Wars isn't actually that type of game. There are 2 quests in the tutorial that require someone else to help you to do them. One person to open a gate, then having the get an ally quest for a resurrection signet. Both of those are optional quests. Sure, one can get you a char bag so you can carry more things, however, you can buy the resurrection signet later, and you can get other bags of the same size later by applying a rune of holding. They are convenience quests, not mandatory. There is a section of the player base that never leaves pre-searing, and the game devs, before they stopped working on the game, created a few things like the char bag and the daily quests for people who don't want to leave pre-searing Ascalon. There is an entire achievement if you reach level 20 in pre-searing. And on top of this, if you are a loner, single-player type of person, or an introvert, like me, and you don't want forced social interaction in your game, then you can hire henchmen to run along with you and act as your party in the post-searing portions of the game. And the game is designed to let you do this. They even created for the 3rd expansion a new type of henchman called a hero you can level and set skills for. For an MMO, Guild Wars is supremely casual, partly because it's an old-school MMO, and they stopped working on it in order to make Guild Wars 2, so it doesn't have these new fear of missing out systems so prevalent in the games of today. There are no season passes or limited time events with items with the best stats you can only get during those events. Everything in the holiday events for Guild Wars is purely cosmetic. Because of the low max level, level 20, this is a game you can put down for a week or a month or my case, years, come back and still be able to play the game without feeling like you've been left behind by all the other players. If you're running around with henchmen, you have full control of the type of build you want to make and aren't constrained by being part of a party who won't tell you what type of monk or mesmer or necromancer they're looking for. You can enjoy the game at your own pace without being pushed about by anxieties, which is great. That's what games are supposed to be. Fun you do at your own time, not work. Guild Wars is less of an MMO as we understand it, even by original World of Warcraft standards, and more of an adventure game you can play with friends or on your own with henchmen. It allows for gameplay type diversity, which I really appreciate, and it did it by design. And it did it by design because the original designers didn't like how the development of World of Warcraft was going mechanically and decided to make their own game. Another thing they did by design was separate out the PvE and the PvP. So PvE players don't have to do PvP, and PvP players can create a character right out of the gate solely for PvP. Since I don't care for PvP, this system suits me fine. Yes, please keep the PvP optional. Now, it's definitely not perfect. There are some quality of life options that would be useful, and will make it so I wouldn't feel like I was metagaming by having to check the two different wikis to make sure I have found / done every single quest in the area. I get why they aren't there in the game in order for the player to feel like they're having this adventure experience. For completionists, it's just one of those, give me a heads up on the minimap, there's a quest nearby or on the HUD or something, or even a list of quests available. They do a relatively good job of guiding you to quests and chaining them together. It's still easy to miss things if you just miss one small portion of the map. I mean, a minimap and a HUD are kind of redundant systems too, except in dungeons that don't have main maps for you to look at. And then the mission map is your savior. There are certain places you just don't spend enough time exploring for you to get to know the map. And pixel maps like Guild Wars map set my teeth on edge. I would rather have a roadmap. Black Desert Online has the best modern map system I've seen if you have to do a Fog of War, Blur of War type system, which I don't mind the Fog or Blur of War system on the map. It does make it so players have to explore to find those transportation areas. Just, make it legible. Stop making my eyes cross. Star Stable's map is horrible. Just take Guild Wars map problems and increase it by 10 because there is no real scale either. At least Guild Wars kept the same scale. I mean, Star Stable is open world and doesn't have Blur of War and all, it just doesn't have a rule scaling system either, so different areas of the map aren't actually the size they look like on the map. The Cantha map in Guild Wars drives me crazy. I can't tell the difference of the city I can explore and I can't. It's just a blur of gray even after I've discovered things. And I had a faction's guidebook with the pullout map. Making it bigger did not help. And the mandatory 2-party dungeon system also drives me crazy. There are speedrunners who do this for fun and profit. And way back when I was playing and trying to do these mandatory 2-party dungeons and I didn't have a meta map or anything, it wasn't possible because of speedrunners and them not willing to chat with you to find out how to make it so everyone can succeed. I don't know if it's gotten any better, but that is a huge reason I stopped playing. I'm not really a fan of tab targeting either. There isn't a real range, it feels like, so you can target something out of your map range and can't see it. So I just avoid tabbing, honestly. If I can't see it, I'm not attacking it. Sometimes things aren't obvious, like when you get new skills. There should be more of a pop-up, I think, to tell you this. Unless your skill bar is full, it can be easy to miss getting new skills, especially early on. The henchmen, while being a good system, I do wish they would level up with me instead of being fixed levels that only go up when you go to certain cities. For instance, in Ascalon City, they are level 3. For Rannoch and Pike Square, level 6, and then at the courthouse, level 8. There are places in the map where if your henchmen are too low level, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to find the path of least resistance, or smallest groups of enemies, to get to the next safe space, so they level up and you have a better staging ground for taking on enemy groups. It'd be nicer, I don't know about easier, if when you, the player, leveled up, they stayed 2 or 3 levels below you at all times. So if you were level 10, then they are level 8. The hero system was meant to fix some of this by leveling up the heroes as well. It just quality of life update could have been done for the older games to just make it so the henchmen are always 2 levels below you. Lastly, the gameplay is really repetitive. I mean it. Guild Wars embodies the go out, kill a bunch of monsters, wash, rinse, repeat of combat MMOs that I dislike. There really aren't any minigames. It can be really tedious. They only switch it up with carry this missions and guard this person missions, which often end up being a lot of kill the monster missions as well. That's all well and good as long as you have other game types you want to play. Guild Wars is a huge time commitment like most MMOs, so you can play a few hours and then go another day, play a farm sim, and come back and kill monsters without being punished for it. I spend a lot of time pretending I'm Sly Cooper, where the fun part is finding the right path from point A to point B, which might not be the straightest path. I know that if I was to get into a new MMO, it'd probably be something like Black Desert Online, even though I don't think BDO has all the same qualities as Guild Wars does, even if it does have a life skill tree system and mounts. I don't know. I don't even think my poor little laptop can play BDO. It's really hard to beat, even though it's older, a game that has a singular box price without microtransactions or anxiety-inducing daily login rewards or seasons, with semi-realistic graphics and a huge instant world where you can explore an expansive story with lots of customization on how to play your character by yourself or with your friends. And you can pick it up and put it down as you like, and aren't forced to compete with others. Sure, there could be some improvements and expansions upon the gameplay, but I wouldn't expect them, and I understand Guild Wars 2 went in a different, more MMO direction instead of sticking with what Guild Wars had that was good and building onto it with new features and new gameplay mechanics like mounts and jumping and the life skill trees for crafting. I'm still waiting more for an MMO. I think that's kind of like a platformer game with some mini-games as big parts of the gameplay along the exploration aspect of it. Which is why I have my own game dev project going to make the MMO I want to play that's more varied. It's called Mystic Riders, and my fellow game dev and I are at the art and super planning stage. A player goes to core summer camp and learns they're a magician, a special magician where they can learn all the different magics in the country. There is another side of magic opposing them, and they can choose what side they're on, and at stake is creativity, or even the fate of the world. Who would want to live in a world without art? Lots of mysteries to explore from the history of the continent, and what is this thing called Harmony Magic anyways? You can check it out all on our Mystic Writers blog, which I'll link below. Guild Wars, though, is where it kind of started for me. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, bless, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.